Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be filming my recent reads number 9. I have just finished filming a video that got me quite emotional, so I'm just taking the time to calm down. But yes, I'm going to be filming my recent reads number 9, which is kind of a little cheat because it isn't really my recent reads number 9. It should be 10. I filmed my recent reads number 9 over 2 weeks ago, but when I went back to edit the footage I was just like, Sandra, what are you saying? But I was just I waffled on for so long. I started editing it and I was just like, you were best off scrapping that video and just filming it again. But I'm not going to film it again today because I just need to gather my thoughts on it and see why I messed up. So I'm going to start off with a book by Agatha Christie, and this is an audiobook and it is Murder in Mesopotamia. I believe Mesopotamia is what was formerly known as Iran, or at least parts of Iran and the surrounding countries. I believe now it's broken down into Iran and other countries. And I listened to this as an audiobook, as I said, and it wasn't my favourite, I have to say. Actually, no, when I first started listening to it, I thought it wasn't that great. When I got to the end, I was like, I actually really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed that for several reasons that I will get into. But like I said, I listened to this book as an audiobook, and I couldn't find the one that was narrated by Hugh Fraser, who is the actor who voices a lot of the books for Agatha Christie ones. He also plays Hastings in the ITV adaptation. So I don't know who narrated this one. I think it was actually a woman, and I'm not sure who does the voice of Poirot in this one, but it was terrible. It really sounded like they were actually genuinely trying to take the piss when they did Poirot's voice. So I found that quite off-putting. But Murder in Mesopotamia is told from the perspective of a character called Nurse Amy Leatherin. And she narrates to us how she basically met this doctor, and this I don't know, she's in some other place in the Middle East, and she meets this doctor and he says, my wife is acting a bit strange, a bit freaked out. Once you're finished with this job that you're doing, would you mind coming out to where I am and staying with her? So she agrees and she goes to this post, and basically I think it's a house that's next to an archaeology dig. Wow, I think I did butcher that word. An archaeology dig, and yeah, there are some archaeologists there. I think there's a monk there, and then there is just I don't know, a guy who's kind of doesn't know what to do with his life, but he has to be there because his warden is making him, and then daughters and I guess the wife of other people and stuff like that. So I think in total there are probably about 13 characters that are on that site, and I guess in this house that's next to it. Poirot doesn't actually feature in the book until much later. What we get is Nurse Leatherin narrating to us basically the atmosphere in this house, and how it's a bit everyone isn't really friends with the people, they're all acting a bit weird, and it's because they all blame this one woman. And this woman's name is Louise Leidner, and her husband Eric Leidner is the one who invited the nurse. And basically, yeah, everyone thinks Miss Leidner is just acting up and behaving really weirdly, and she's really divided the group. So apparently the dig went ahead last year and people weren't as moody as they were this year. So it starts off with setting the scene, and it's I would say a good 15% of the way through, with just our nurse finding out basically what is happening in this place, and also interacting with Mrs. Leidner. You find out from Miss Leidner that she thinks that someone's trying to kill her, she's been receiving letters, and all these sorts of things, and you kind of get the impression that she's a very nervous woman. And then, of course, a murder happens. I think sometimes it's really nice reading Agatha Christie books where the murder, you don't start off basically with the murder. You have a bit of backstory and then the murder happens. So then a murder happens, and basically no one can tell how this person was killed. I had to now be really careful with my pronouns so I don't give away who it was that was killed. But the room said person was in, basically in order to have killed them, the person would have had to go through the front door, but no one heard or seen anything, and it's quickly dismissed that the person entered through the door. So the huge mystery is there's a window in the room, and the huge mystery is obviously who killed this person and how did they do it, and also why. So I guess with this you try and find out if Miss Leidner was actually correct in what she was thinking and things like that, and if perhaps someone was wanting to kill her. Actually, now that I'm saying this, it's really hard to talk about the rest of the book without saying that the person who dies is Miss Leidner. She's obviously paranoid that someone's going to kill her, and then someone does, and then it's about finding out why she died. I'm not gonna lie, basically the answer is proposed to you very early on in the book. It's just so bloody far-fetched, and it is said by characters also in the book that impossible, it couldn't be what it actually ends up being, because yeah, I can't actually tell you why, because then you'd be able to guess the ending. So it's a bit annoying that that ended up being the actual thing, because I don't really feel like it was a red herring. I just think kind of impossible. How would she not know? So yeah. So whilst I did find the ending was a bit like, impossible, like when they explained it, I thought, okay, but I still kind of think, how would she not know? However, I very much enjoyed the sort of commentary that ran throughout the book, and I think it was more of a lot of commentary about, I guess, Agatha Christie and the different types of women she'd come across, and also men, but I felt like I really took interest in a lot of comments she had to say about women, and she does this very nicely and very seamlessly. I think it just stood out to me because it wasn't really what I find in a lot of her writing. And what I mean by that is when Miss Lina does die, I think one of the Nurse Leverin's thoughts about her, it was the comment she made about the woman's character and the kind of person that she was. They sounded so like accurate about someone that I feel like Agatha Christie had to have met someone in her life that she basically put as a character. And I feel like for some other characters there's the same kind of thing as well. I didn't really highlight anything because I listened to it as an audiobook, but I have written down in my notes, as I, particularly when she spoke about the character of the dead woman, she was so apt and descriptive about it. It makes me think Agatha has come across a woman like her before. I just think there were comments about her personality, certain things I think you can only really write that in a book if you've had those thoughts about other people. And there were just sort of general life comments, like Nurse Leverin says in one bit where she says, life is a battlefield, not a picnic. And I guess this probably comes from the fact that Nurse Leverin is a nurse. She's seen many different things during her time as a nurse. But there was a lot of commentary I felt in this book about life in general and the hardships of life in general weaved in through what was happening. But yes, definitely the commentary about women, the kind of different women that they are, the kind of things that they're able to sort of stir up in men, or producing groups, like that sort of division that was happening in the group. There was a lot of commentary about there about women who are just hysterical, or women who, you know, won't really say anything, but you know they mean other things. There was a lot of that, and I don't feel like it was ever done in a bitchy way. It was just more observations about people. I just found that it was interesting that it was in this book. I thought it worked really well, but definitely there was a lot of talk about the different types of people that they are and how they might rile up situations. I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 because of that, because I thought, well done, Agatha. I think that showed a bit of outside knowledge, a bit of just grit and depth to characters, and more to the story than just there's a murder. The next book I'm going to speak about is Cain, and this is actually a poetry collection. I gave this 2 out of 5 stars because, quite frankly, I didn't understand it. This book is split into 3 sections, and so the first section is just really quite straightforward and, quite frankly, was my favourite sort of section. The second is poems that are anagrams. I honestly didn't understand what was going on. And then the third section, there were poems that I like, but overall, because that middle section was just, my god, for me, I had to give it 2 out of 5. So I did show this in a book haul. This was actually a Christmas present to me, so I feel kind of bad not liking it. Oh, it's not showing up. I would try and do cutaways for you guys, but they're basically anagrams. And the way that the book is split is the poem is in the middle, and then there are all these words around it. So it's very annoying to read. At first when I saw it, I was like, oh, that looks really great. It looks great on the page, and this must have been a nightmare in terms of like printing and stuff like that. But you have to obviously then follow these words across as they break, and the font is really small. And also the content is uninteresting. I couldn't believe it. So actually I felt kind of good, or I felt better about the fact that I then didn't have to read it, because quite frankly what they were talking about, I was like, I don't know. It seemed to be that they were talking about some sort of TV show. So I'm going to read you the back of this, because that's the only way I can describe this, because what it says in the back and what I got, I was just a bit like, I kind of see that, but there is no... I'll read back. It says, the year is 2016 and Luke Kennard finds himself estranged from his family, his publisher and his faith. With the help of his community psychiatric nurse, who claims to be the living embodiment of Cain, the first murderer, the poet changes his name to Father K and searches for answers in his childhood, in poetry, in alcohol, in a notorious long-running DVD box set. Tricky, can't say that word, and laugh out loud funny, Cain is a dazzling new collection from new generation poet Luke Kennard. In a series of animated conversations, Cain provides therapy sessions for the author, covering everything from interfaith dialogue and genealogy to zombies. Cain's central sequence of 31 anagram poems re-energizes Genesis 4:9-12, demonstrating the mastery of form and trademark surreal humour that has made Kennard. Okay, yeah. And yeah, quite frankly, I think I just didn't get it. I didn't get the poetry collection, so, you know, it wasn't for me. There are 2 poems that are like in the beginning that I think were really nice. They were really like tongue-in-cheek and they were really funny. I want to see if I can find the one that I thought was tongue-in-cheek. It's a poem called Artificial Scent, and they're in the checkout and they go to, I think, check out something. They check out a bottle and it says, the poem says, when I scanned the first bottle, the automated checkout says, approval needed, and Cain says, she really gets you. I just thought that was quite funny, and a lovely way to tie in what happens at the checkout when you buy alcohol and you need approval. But yeah, I don't really have much to say about this poem because I really feel like I didn't connect with it. And I think largely that's because I didn't get what he was trying to say. Therefore, I don't have any comments. I found the first bit a bit interesting. The poetry was great. The second section, it was so long as well, and I just didn't read it fully. And what I did read, I didn't understand. But by the time I got to the last section, I was just hoping for this to be done. There are some other bits that I have actually bookmarked in here because there are certain poems in the last section that I really liked. But as a collection overall, did I get it and did I like it? No. So 2 out of 5. Another book I'm going to speak about is called Hello Mum by Bernadine Evaristo. Of course, I read Girl Woman yeah, that's what it's called, last year and really enjoyed that, so I wanted to pick up another book by her, and this was a book that was as part of a quick read series. I think it's used to introduce an author's writing to an audience, but also it's another initiative that it's part of. And Hello Mum, I think is told during the course of one day actually, but it is about a teenage boy who is killed. He's knifed to death in London and he is writing letters to his mum, and he basically is trying to tell her the tale of how he got there, how he died, and he talks about, he just sort of talks about like the little different moments that added up to this moment, and it's incredibly poignant, and it is a novella, so it's really short, and I kind of, you know, the more you talk about a novella that's so short, the more you are tempted to just like tell everyone the entire story. But he talks about, you know, when he goes to a party, I think for the first time, and a whole bunch of like gang members come, and like him and his friend have to run from somewhere, and how like that incident makes him realise that one of his friends is like, you know, what he deems like a pussy, and basically it shows how those series of events basically led him to go and meet someone that he knows is in the gang and sort of like try and roll with the cool kids, what he does, and how basically he ended up being stabbed. And it's really sad. I think the most saddest bit of the book was for me when he says, you know, so I just want you to know, like, because he talks about the fact that the media will pick it up and obviously what people will say about him, and he says, I just want you to know that no, this hasn't been going on for a long time. Like, this was the first day. Like, it was the first day he'd actually ever done anything like this that he does, and he's killed on the first day. And I think it really struck me, the fact that he wanted her to know that this wasn't him. Like, this was one day. And it might be painted later in the media that this is all he'd been doing his whole life. So yeah, and I think he's about 15. So that was pretty sad, but it's also a very short novella. So read it and see what you think. And for reference, I gave that 3 stars. The final book I'm going to speak about is 1,000 Ships by Natalie Haynes, a book I also gave 3 stars. I actually really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed finding out about so many of the different women that were involved in the Trojan War. I think this was a fantastic piece when I think back to it and think about the amount of research that would have gone into it. Fantastic. It's the kind of book that I can't really explain to you, because if you know about the Trojan War, then just think that this is the story told from the perspective of those women, things that they might have seen. I learned about so many women, and I really enjoyed particularly hearing about the stories from a character called Ladomia and the Amazon women fighters. I enjoyed the Ladomia story because it was just heartbreaking about love, and the Amazon women just about their sort of backstory and then how they came to join the war. Just 2 people I'd never heard about before, 2 women I'd never heard about before, so their stories were incredibly interesting. Don't want to really retell it to you. I think you should go and read the book and find out. And I kept reading the book, and I'd get to points where I was really annoyed at the book, and I couldn't pinpoint why. And I might have said this in my sort of reading vlog / like May birthday vlog. The parts that really annoyed me for Penelope's parts, and I don't know if that's because I've heard quite a fair bit about Penelope and stuff like that, but I don't think that's it. I don't think it's to do with the story. It's to do with the way those parts were written. Penelope's parts were written as if they were a letter to Odysseus, or like she was writing a diary. Perhaps that's actually a more accurate description. She honestly just sounded like this bored, drunk lady, like housewife that was just waiting for her husband to come home. Her pages just went on and on. She just droned on and on about how much she loved Odysseus, what life is like, blah 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 blah. And I don't know why I got the feeling from that than any of the other bits, but I just felt like she droned on, and it was just like, get a grip. Like, you just got to the point where you were just like, get a goddamn grip. And every time I read her parts, I would just, you know, but then I'd read the parts from the other women, and I was like blown away, like their experiences. And I guess also, I'm going to say, I think a lot of this comes from the fact that I don't know a lot about the Trojan War and the different things that happened to these women. So it was just finding out about their stories, and it was just brand new. But those Penelope parts are dragged, I'm not going to lie, and they're very frequent. So I would read the book and just get really annoyed. So that is why I gave it 3. I think otherwise I would have given it 4 stars. But I honestly hate the fact that I had to even read those pieces. But that is all really I can say about the book. It is simply telling us the stories of these things that have happened through the women's perspective. And I think Natalie did a lot of reading different parts of Greek history and things around the Trojan War that helped her to piece together what these women's lives might have been like, you know, obviously after when the war was won and they were like sort of taking them off and taking them to different islands. It talks about, I'm trying to remember, the guy that battles with Achilles over like sort of Briseis, and he was just Agamemnon, that's it, I think he is, who's generally quite stubborn. It talks about his wife, and I thought the story behind that was quite interesting. There's a lot of betrayal, there's a lot of hurt, there is so much going on in here, and there was just so much that I didn't know, but these women's voices were just elevated. I held a lot of these women in high regard. Like, I read the book and really felt like these were strong, powerful women. And these things that they had to endure, I just couldn't imagine. So I just held them in such high regard, which is why I kept getting pissed off when I got to Penelope's parts. And she was just this woman wailing, and just like, it just seemed like she was doing nothing, even though I knew in the back of mind what was happening in the background. So yes, that's just the contrast. These women that I really felt were really powerful and I held in high regard. And then Penelope, in this book at least. So yes, that is it for this recent reads video. I will try and film the other recent reads video very soon, because the 3 books I want to talk in there are excellent books. I think it is The Vanishing Half, Sensuous Knowledge, and Freshwater. And I want to have chats about those books, so I think that's why I kind of just got in over my head. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Let me know if you've read any of these books, or if you are interested in reading any of these books. As you can see, I'm back on my Agatha Christie kind of hype. So yeah, we're going to see more books, more reviews about her books during the course of the year. I might actually be able to finish it this year. Watch this space. But yeah, I'll catch you in the next video. Bye!